Senator Schneiderman is joining us from Buffalo tonight. Thank you very much for your time, Senator.
Thanks. Glad to be here, Liz.
We haven't actually seen you since last Tuesday, so congratulations are in order. You won a pretty tight victory, 34-32, your closest rival, Nassau County DA Kathleen Rice.
Thank you very much. It was a great campaign, great opponents, and I'm very honored to be the Democratic nominee.
Well, now, of course, you are upstate, and you're having a focus, more of a statewide focus. I mean, you were upstate a little bit during the primary, but the bulk of the vote came out of New York City. How are you changing your campaign to be addressing the general election?
Well, the campaign is not changing in terms of the substance. It's certainly changing in terms of the outreach I have to do, because I have to introduce myself to a whole new set of voters. But people are looking for the same sort of activist attorney general, whether they're Republicans or independents or Democrats who don't vote in a primary, as the Democratic base. The same issues that I heard about throughout the primary are the issues I'm hearing about now. People are upset about the economy and the meltdown and misconduct on Wall Street that led to it. They're concerned about their homes and mortgage foreclosures. And then the second issue is they're upset that the government is not doing its job. They want work cleaning up Albany, and they want to know that their taxpayer dollars are being well spent and the government works for them. Those are the same two issues I hear in inner city communities in the Bronx, that I hear out in suburban communities in Suffolk, that I hear up here in Erie County.
You know, the race actually got joined very quickly. I mean, it was just 24 hours after your win that your Republican opponent, Dan Donovan, was announcing that he had been endorsed by a Democrat, actually, former New York City Mayor Ed Koch. And then today, the accusations are already flying. In a press release, you said Mr. Donovan has vowed to take a hands-off attitude towards corrupt Wall Street titans and mortgage brokers who got us into the financial meltdown in the first place. What specifically are you talking about there?
Well, this is coming out of Mr. Donovan's statements that he didn't want to be the sheriff of Wall Street. He said that he didn't want to disturb the garden, and I think one of his great lines was, we shouldn't look for corruption where it isn't. Well, you don't know if there's corruption if you don't look for it. And look, this is a time when I think more than ever people need an activist attorney general who will stand up for them. I mean, the grassroots consequences of the financial meltdown, the people who are the victims of frauds, who are stuck with bad mortgages, who are having problems with debt collectors, people who lost their pension funds because of rip-offs by people like Bernie Madoff and now can't get recovery. They need an activist attorney general. I want to continue that tradition and follow up on the work Andrew Cuomo's done. He's an activist when it comes to policing Wall Street. He went after the auction rate securities issue. He's gone after the big mortgage firms, and he's really continued to pursue corruption, get industry-wide settlements, come up with codes of conduct. That's what people are looking for. They're not looking to go back to the more laissez-faire, let Wall Street set
Well, wait a minute. I'm sorry.
Policy of the Bush era.
Hold on. I think that what the DA said was he thought, quote, he would take a fair approach. There's no need to look for corruption where there isn't. I mean, that doesn't specifically say he's going to turn a blind eye to Wall Street. Aren't you extrapolating a little bit?
No. He said he didn't want to disturb the garden. I mean, the very clear message was he was looking to, and maybe this is a fundraising vehicle, but he's looking to pull back from the activist role that the last two attorneys general have taken in terms of financial services. And I will tell you, as I travel around the state, the people who I'm meeting, the folks who are facing foreclosures, which are going through the roof, up 37% in the last month in the state of New York, they don't want to hear about an attorney general who's not going to stand up for ordinary families against financial institutions, whether it's mortgage brokers, stock brokers, insurance companies, or debt collectors that are particularly out in this part of the state, I find, really out of control.
Okay, but then you have people in the business community, for example, the New York City Partnership, who say that you're actually perhaps wanting to be too aggressive on Wall Street, which is, of course, the financial engine of the state. I mean, I don't think anyone's saying that there's not corruption there. Certainly Elliot Spitzer proved that. But how aggressive do you need to be?
Well, it's important to strike the right balance. But look, unlike my Republican opponent, I actually spent 15 years as a securities lawyer working in the private sector and as a partner in a big firm that represented companies like Merrill Lynch. I understand the street. I understand the market. The key here is that the public has lost confidence in the markets, in the basic institutions of the private sector. They've pulled $33 billion. Investors have pulled $33 billion out of the stock market this year. That reflects a loss of confidence that can only be restored if we have good policing. We send the message that everyone's got to play by the rules, and that, you know, ordinary investors are going to be given a fair shake. That doesn't happen if you say, well, I'm just going to let Wall Street handle itself. We saw what that got us. The deregulation of the Bush era that the Republicans like Dan Donovan, I'm sure, supported, went too far. We know that. We had a financial meltdown. There are families all over New York who are paying the price for the misconduct of others. I'm going to take a balanced approach, but we have to get people confident enough to start investing in the market. The good actors on Wall Street, the overwhelming majority of folks who work there, are suffering because of the perception of the public, $33 billion worth of public perception, that they don't trust putting their money in the market anymore. That's what I'm out to remedy.
So Dan Donovan, you're painting Dan Donovan as a handmaiden of Wall Street, and he paints you as a handmaiden of the Reverend Al Sharpton. I mean, he has taken this quote that you gave when you got Reverend Sharpton's endorsement, saying that the House of Justice, which is Reverend Sharpton's organization, will have an annex in Albany for the first time in the history of the state, and painting you as a tool of that particular special interest. What did you mean when you said that?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, no one who was there took this at all literally. As Barack Obama said, Reverend Sharpton is someone who gives voice to the voiceless, and that was the context for the statement. I want to be an attorney general that makes sure all voices are heard. All over the state, whether it's people in poor communities in New York City, or frankly, a lot of the families up here in Western New York feel that there's no one to speak up for them. There's not a lawyer to represent them and stand up for their interests. The voices of ordinary working people, of poor people, of middle-class people, are not heard in Albany. And Reverend Sharpton has been described frequently as someone who gives voice to the voiceless. I'm going to be an attorney general who makes sure that all voices are heard. And I assure you,
but will you,
again, the same issues that are raised in Harlem, in Bedford-Stuyvesant, in the poor communities all around the state, in African-American communities and Latino communities, I'm hearing the same thing here in Buffalo. I was in Rochester last night. Same issues. People do not feel that the government in Albany is hearing their voices, and I want to make sure all voices are heard.
But Senator,
Latino voices, the working families of Buffalo, the African-American community, they all need to be heard.
Senator, in addition, though, there have been reports that, for example, Al Sharpton owes millions of dollars in back taxes. Would you be willing to investigate that, if necessary, when you've already given such resounding support to him?
No, absolutely. Look, listen, I've worked with Reverend Sharpton on a lot of issues over the years. We worked on issues related to gun violence, and I've been traveling the state this summer because of the epidemic of shootings in poor communities around the state this summer, particularly in parts of the African-American community in Rochester and Albany and Buffalo. And I've worked with him on issues. But that doesn't mean I'm not prepared to go after him if he's guilty of any misconduct. Look, Hiram Montserrat and I worked together on immigration issues very closely. That didn't stop me from setting up a committee and chairing it, and for the first time in modern history, expelling a corrupt senator.
But
I'm prepared to go after anybody if there's evidence of misconduct.
But do you believe there is here evidence of misconduct?
No, I don't. I don't have any of the information that prosecutors or investigators have. I'm not going to prejudge a case, as I was throughout the Montserrat case. I'm not going to make any comments about anything. I don't know that Reverend Sharpton, I gather they're in a settlement and trying to work things out. All these issues that might come before me as Attorney General, I can't really address directly, but I have to say that the notion that because I'm seeking to unite all the communities of the state, because I have support in the Latino community, the Chinese community, in Buffalo, in Rochester, in Syracuse, in the Jewish community, and all over the state of New York, that somehow is questionable. My campaign looks like the state of New York, and I'm proud to have had the support in the primary of essentially all the leaders of the African-American community, including Reverend Sharpton as one, along with Carl McCall, Bill Thompson, Mayor Byron Brown up here in Buffalo, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. I have a lot of support across the spectrum, and I am seeking to bring people together on a justice agenda that seeks to represent ordinary working families in a time when they're really under financial stress and when they feel that the government in Albany is not responding to their needs.
Okay, but one person that you have not received the endorsement from yet is Andrew Cuomo, and I know that you've spoken about trading phone calls with him and that you'd like to have his support. You signed on to his reform pledge. When could we see perhaps an endorsement? I mean, at this time in 2006, we had seen Eliot Spitzer endorse Andrew Cuomo already.
Well, you know, we're talking, and you got to allow us a little opportunity to create some drama. But no, we are in contact, and I have spoken to him, and he, you know, I look forward to working with him in this campaign, and I look forward to working with him when he's the governor and I'm the Attorney General.
Are you going to continue to make Carl Palladino an issue, even though Dan Donovan says he will not be endorsing Carl Palladino?
Well, Dan Donovan said he's not allowed to endorse anybody. So, you know, he's really taking this position that doesn't mean he's not supporting Carl Palladino. He certainly hasn't denounced Carl Palladino, as I think, you know, reasonable Republicans across the state have begun to do. No, listen, he's running on the ticket with Carl Palladino. He's a Republican. He's, you know, he's anti-choice. I mean, he's been a Republican his whole career, worked his way up through the Republican machine in Staten Island. He can't get away from his party. The fact that his party has swung to the radical right, you know, and he's still running on the ticket, I think speaks for itself. I am running my own campaign with a positive message that I will be an activist Attorney General. I will continue the work that Andrew Cuomo has been doing. Look, and the notion that this is some, you know, they're trying to, the effort to portray me as something other than just someone who has the same positions as Attorney General Cuomo is kind of absurd. I am here to unite as many people as possible in the state behind Governor Cuomo, behind my justice agenda, and to make sure that we help people dealing with the grassroots consequences of the economic meltdown, we help ordinary working families, and that we make the government in Albany work better for them, that we go after issues of public integrity more aggressively. That's what I'm hearing in every community in the state, and that's what the Schneiderman campaign for Attorney General is all about.
Well, Senator, I know that you're very much a supporter of Andrew Cuomo's, but he isn't governor yet. I just have to remind you of that. And also, we unfortunately are out of time, but I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Liz. I have confidence in the voters of the state of New York that they will make that come to pass.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Eric Schneiderman.
Thank you.